Hi, Gene Burnett from GeneBurnett.com. I'm gonna start this little video with a joke. It's a slightly sexist joke, so I'm gonna tell it. I'm gonna reverse the genders. All right, these two women wake up in a room, a white, infinite space room. One of them's an engineer, and one of them's a physicist. And suddenly, out of nowhere, there's a big explosion of lightning, and a naked dude, good-looking dude, naked over there, appears off in the distance. And the two women, the physicist and the engineer, they run over towards the naked man, but they whack into this force field about halfway between them and the naked man. Bonk. They can't go forward. There's another explosion, thunderous roar, and all of a sudden they can go forward. So they advance forward again, and boom, they hit the force field again halfway between them and the naked guy. The physicist starts to understand what's going on and starts to nod his head a little bit. There's another, and all of a sudden their force field's gone, and they go up to the next force field, which of course they find halfway between where they were and where the naked man is. But the physicist, he just sits down. He's not going to go forward anymore. Or she sits down. She's not going to go forward anymore. The engineer is kind of impatient, waiting for the next thunderous roar. When the roar comes, he runs right up to the force field again, and so on. The next couple of thunderous roars, and the physicist says to the engineer, "Hey, don't you realize that this force field keeps appearing halfway between you and that naked man, and that if this keeps up, you're never gonna make it to him?" And the engineer says, "I'll get close enough." Well, this is the difference between the theoretical and the practical, between the engineer and the physicist, or physicist and the engineer. The idea in the joke is that the physicist deals in absolutes and abstractions and pure theory, whereas the engineer deals in what needs to be done to get close enough that you can end up with something functional or something that you want. This applies to martial arts and Tai Chi as well. There are people that are very much into the abstract and the kind of theoretical ideas of Tai Chi. I call them kind of the museum keepers rather than the physicists. They're the people that really are like flame keepers of the forms. They're very form-oriented, they're very posture-oriented, theory-oriented. Maybe they believe in meridians and Chi theory, or maybe they're into the physics of Tai Chi rather than the mystical aspects. But the idea is they're really obsessed with the form and doing the forms the way that the elders did them, or the way the ancients did them. Meticulous detail to forms, and kind of keeping the flame of the art through the form alive. And they're really, really valuable. They're super valuable, because there's many times in history where whole arts would have died out if there weren't for these museum keepers who really kept the forms alive by focusing on the forms. The other side is what I would call like more of a laboratory approach. They're more of a researcher. They want to kind of breathe fresh life, practical life into the forms. They want to make sure this still works. They want to pressure test it. They want to take it into practice, not just content with the form of itself. They ask, does this work? Now, Bruce Lee was that kind of practitioner. He dug into things and tried them out and experimented and put pressure on them. And do these things still work? I think they're both super valuable, and I think for arts to really survive, both of them need to be alive. There need to be museum keepers who keep the work that others have done, preserve it as much as possible, and fight for the correct form, right? The correct history and the kind of the museum aspect of it. And then there's these other people, the more laboratory, the more researcher-oriented people who are always pushing the limits and testing and making sure things work and making sure they're still practical. I like to think of an art as having a sort of a dynamic conversation between these two poles, both serving their purpose, because the people that are interested in making it alive now and researching and treating it all like a ongoing laboratory they need the forms as a foundation to work from. And the people who are kind of obsessed with and protecting and doing things just so in the form world, they need that pressure, they need that window into the practical to remind them that the theory does have to be compromised somewhat when it's brought into the real world. Theoreticians do very poorly in the ring unless they've had practical practice. And people who obsess with practical practice but don't pay enough attention to form can get in trouble injury-wise. So I feel like they're both nice. I value both in my own life and my own practice. I definitely practice forms, and I put emphasis on getting the forms, as correctly as I can. But I'm not obsessed with micro corrections and getting it exactly just so. I have a sort of zone of correctness that I'm aiming for. And I also put stress on it and make sure that it works for me, and that the techniques and stuff work both for my health and for my Tai Chi, both in partner exercises and in more practical application. I try to make sure that I don't try to do a perfect form in an imperfect world where things are unpredictable and chaotic. So I try to keep a balance between the two, which is really what Tai Chi is all about, right? Balance. So anyway, if you like this kind of thing, if you like these kind of videos, please subscribe to my channel, and you can also make a donation below. I have a PayPal link down below. I don't have commercials on this channel, probably never will. And if you'd like to support me in some small way, no tip is too small, no tip is too large. You can just buy me a cup of coffee if you like. Or not. I'm just sharing these to be helpful anyway. That's always been my main purpose, is to be helpful. So thanks for watching, and I hope this is helpful.